everyone, and welcome to another episode of MimiLumi Presents Yoga. It's been a while, hasn't it? I hope you have all been well and have had a fairly happy new year, despite things perhaps not being exactly as we wished them to. I wanted to do a practice today that was twofold, something that felt quite grounding without necessarily using a lot of floor work or contact with the earth, but also something that at the same time feels quite energizing and uplifting. And a lot of it stems from work in and around the core, the pelvis, and the hips for this session. So we're going to be getting a lot of movement through there and working out some really deep-centered kinks or senses of stickiness that we might have in those areas, particularly if you have been finding that you're spending a lot more time either sitting at your desk or sitting on the couch or lying in bed. You won't necessarily need a mat for this practice, and I did that purposely so that if you're in the middle of a work day and you just want to jump up and start moving, you can do that, and you don't necessarily need to set yourself up with a mat. But if you prefer to have a mat, then of course take the time to lay one out now, and we're going to start standing. So let's get ready. So we're starting standing. And normally I would prompt you to stand in either traditional Tadasana or with your feet directly underneath your hip joints, so hip width distance apart. But actually, let's start with a slightly wider stance. So now your feet are aiming to be just outside of the hip joints. So still not particularly wide. And then bring your weight back into your heels, pick your toes up, spread them wide, and then press them back down towards the floor. So that you really feel that every pad and every surface of the foot is beginning to sink down in towards the floor. From here, have a little play with your weight. So we can begin to bring the weight forwards and backwards. Again, it's not a huge movement, you're just noticing that sensation through the feet, that contact with the earth. And we're going side to side as well. And then maybe you'd like to take a few circles. And again, these circles can be really small and subtle. If you want to make them a little bit bigger and sort of test your balance, you're welcome to. But try not to grip too much or scrunch up the toes, I should say. Make sure you go in both directions with your circle. And then begin to slow that movement down, make it smaller and smaller until you can really find a sweet spot through the feet where you feel the weight is really even through all four corners of the feet. And then inhale your shoulders up and down towards the ears, and exhale shoulder blades back down the spine. And there's a little bit of energy towards your fingertips so that you feel that there's a sense of length and vibrancy through the arms. Allow your eyes to softly close. You can really feel the face, neck and the jaw is relaxed, the back of the neck is long. The crown of the head lifts towards the ceiling as the soles of the feet continue to ground down into the earth. All the while there's that little bit of energy towards fingertips. And also a little bit of energy around the abdominal muscles as well. So we're not overly contracting or engaging those muscles, but there's just a sweet little hum. So that we feel that we're standing with real vitality through our body. And begin to bring a little bit more awareness to your breath. So that as you inhale, you can feel the breath traveling all the way from the soles of the feet, up the length of your body, all the way to the very crown of your head. And then as you exhale, we lose no sense of height or space or length, but we can feel that breath just travel back down through the body, surrendering and grounding back down into the earth. Wonderful. And if you'd like to take a couple of audible exhales for these last few rounds, feel free to do so. Deep breath in through the nose, and then audible sigh out through the mouth. 2 or 3 times in your own rhythm. Just letting go of any lingering tension. Wonderful. And And then allow your eyes to softly reopen, to become adjusted to the light in the room once more. Inhale the arms up above the head. And I want you to grab onto your right wrist with your left hand. Flex the right wrist. And we'll inhale to lift and lengthen up. Keep that sense of grounding down through the feet as you exhale into a side bend. And you'll notice I'm not particularly shifting my hips here. I'm thinking about lifting my torso up and out of the pelvis. And I'm pressing evenly through both feet, right and left, to keep me grounded and connected towards the earth. My neck is just relaxed and I'm looking wherever is comfortable for my gaze. Another breath here to hold. And then we inhale to come back up. Change the grip of the wrist and the hand. Then again, exhale, we lift up to come over. Try to relax the left shoulder here. Don't let it creep up towards your ear. Again, the back of the neck is long. And we're really just stretching right from that top of the hip all the way up through the side of the torso. Inhale back up to center. And as you exhale, just let those hands drop and then sway. Slowly letting go of that momentum until they come to stillness. Good. From here, I'd like you to bring the feet a little closer in now. So you're back into your true hip width distance through the feet. And then inhale the arms up behind the head, interlace those fingers. And you're creating a little hammock here for the head so that the thumbs are reaching down along the back of your neck and your elbows are reaching up towards the sky. And it's like you're lifting the head up out of the neck and the spine. From here, inhale to lift and lengthen, and then exhale, take a side bend towards your right. Inhale to take that right arm up towards opposite corner. Exhale to release from that twist, and then inhale to come out of the side curve. Yeah. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And you can play around with the breath. So maybe it feels better to come into the side curve on an exhale. But I quite like to inhale over, exhale twist, inhale release, exhale to come back up. That also works better for my blood pressure. I often find it easier to come up on an exhale rather than an inhale. And again, we're not creating too much movement here through the hips. It's just the torso and the upper body working. And both feet are evenly grounding down in towards the earth. Again, toes spread nice and wide. Good, one more round on each side. The support of the hands here is really helping to maintain that relaxed neck and head. There should be no gripping there. The last time towards the left. Wonderful. We release the hands. And just take a second to just turn the head from side to side. Hopefully if you were feeling any tension through the back of the neck or upper shoulders, that might have just eased some of the tension off. Partly because you've stretched the muscles, but also because you've reawakened through your obliques in the torso. So your obliques are now firing off to help you with that turning of the head. Great. So from here, we're going to get a little funky. And I want you to just take, starting off, a few little knee bends. Yeah, so tracking knees out of the toes, warming up the synovial fluid in the knee joint, warming up a little bit more through the legs. And as you exhale, we bend, and again, there's that sense of dropping the tailbone towards the earth, pressing out through the soles of the feet. And then as you inhale, we lift and lengthen up. Yeah. Beautiful. As we come back down, not a huge knee bend, just a little bit of a bent knee. I now want us to start working through the hips a little bit. So you can begin swaying hips from side to side, and maybe front and back. And you can have the hands just loose and relaxed beside you, or if it's easier or helpful to you, have hands on hips. It makes the movement a bit more noticeable if you have your hands on your hips. Yeah. And I've talked about this visual trigger before of your pelvis being a bowl of water. So really we're just sort of rocking that bowl of water around so that the water almost spills out but doesn't quite get there. And if you want to take a couple of circles, feel free to do so. Make sure that you're not going too much into what we call lordosis, so not too much towards the back. Pretty even front and back. Warming up through the hips. Lovely. Nice. Coming back to stillness and center, straightening the legs. Now you can either stay with the parallel knee bends, or if we want to work a little bit through our external rotation, we can have a little bit of a dancer moment here. Draw heels together and toes out. And you're turning out just as is comfortable for your hips. You want to make sure that when you move into these knee bends, your knee can stay tracking out over the toes. Yeah, so you don't want to come do a really wide turnout if that means that you're damaging the knee. So it can be really small, it can just be very tight, 45 degrees. Yeah, I'm going to move into my natural turnout, hands on hips. And as we exhale again, we're bending down. Keep that sense of lengthening and lift through the torso, tailbone towards the floor, but crown of the head dropping up towards the sky. And then we inhale to lengthen. Yeah, so you're working still through the knees, but we're accessing different muscles in the hips and the thighs, particularly in our inner thighs here, our adductors. And as you inhale and straighten, see if you can squeeze your inner thighs together, just a little bit, so that no light's coming through the legs. Just a few more. Beautiful. Brilliant. We come back to parallel. And then from here, I'd like you to take your right foot out nice and high, nice and far in front of you, and left foot behind. So you're coming into a high lunge, and quite a high lunge as well. Yes, so we're feeling really that stretch through the left hip as the spine comes into neutral, and hopefully there's not too much pressure or load in that right knee. Really spread the toes out wide. Make that your weight even through all four corners of the feet. Good. So just holding here for a few breaths to stretch that part of the hip. And then we're going to again work through this motion through the pelvis. So before we were working in this sort of circular motion, now we're going to be working in this sort of a circular motion as though you're a water wheel. So we do that by bending the back leg slightly. And we're going to bring the pelvis forward, up and back. So it's like your tailbone is trying to draw a circle in space. Yeah, and it will probably feel a bit icky and sticky and resistant, particularly if you've been sitting down for most of the day. Yeah, and then we reverse the motion. So now the tailbone points towards the back, comes up and then forwards. Make a note of which movement of the circle, forwards or backwards, feels the stickiest for you personally. Yeah. And then we're coming back towards stillness, straight back leg. Just notice how the hip is feeling now as we hold in this stationary position. If you can feel a sense of being more open and comfortable through the left hip. Great. From here, we'll take our hands to cactus, and I would like us to aim to bring that left knee towards the right elbow. So this can be quite subtle. You can actually just sort of keep the foot supported on the floor. Think about bringing it in and crossing before coming back out. Yeah, so if I turn this way, again, foot stays supported on the floor, and you're just thinking of bringing it in, twist, and out. Or we can work to lift the foot off the floor and bring the knee towards the right elbow. And then lower. As you lower, make sure you're lightly landing on that foot and you're not letting it slam down into the floor. So we're moving with control. Let's take another 3 rounds. So we're really working through the obliques, continuing to press out through the sole of that supporting right foot. And lengthen through the spine. Last time. Good. Straighten both legs now and make sure that your feet are on train tracks, okay? So some of us might have been a little bit more like we were walking on a tightrope. Take the feet now so that they're hip-width distance apart, as though the feet were resting on train tracks. We're going to come into a forward fold here, but before you do so, lift and lengthen and engage through the legs. Draw kneecaps up towards the hips. Inhale to lift and lengthen through the spine, and then exhale, fold forward, hinging through the hips. So you're pouring the water out through that pelvis bowl. And just start at our gentle variation first, so hands on the legs for a little bit of support. This front right knee can be a little bit bent, a little bit soft. Try not to press into the kneecap though. If you want to release further, you can take the hands towards the floor and relax through the back of the neck. Try to keep the hips square though, so there's a tendency to let that left hip open up. You want to keep it pointing towards the front. Yeah. A few little deep breaths here. And again, I'm not really concerned about this right leg being super straight. Even bent, you're getting a really lovely stretch through the back of that leg. But instead, I want you to think about the water pouring out through the pelvis, down through the spine, out through the back of the neck and the crown of the head. And just really releasing that energy there. Good. One more deep breath in, and then as you exhale, bend your back left knee a little bit. And we're going to slowly roll up through the spine, vertebrae by vertebrae, until we inhale up to standing, and we'll turn to the other side. Or if you're still facing the short end of your mat, we're simply changing legs. But I'm going to turn so you can see this way. So left leg's in front now, right leg's behind. And again, it's not a super deep high lunge, because we don't want to put too much pressure on this knee in this particular instance. Instead, I want you to think about trying to draw your pelvis into a neutral position so your water bowl is level and you're feeling that right hip, the right front of the hip stretch and open. Just a couple of breaths here. And then again, we move through that water wheel action. So starting with the tailbone drawing towards the front of your mat and then coming up and back. So let that back right knee bend as much as you need to so you can get that full range of motion through the pelvis and the hips. A few times to the front, and then we reverse the motion. So now the tailbone is going towards the back, and then it's coming up. And again, make note of any stickiness. Try not to run away from it. If anything, lean into it. Good. And then we come back to our initial quite high lunge, and just notice how that right hip is feeling. Notice if there's any tension cropping up through that back right leg that doesn't need to be there. If there's any pain in the front knee, just readjust. Make sure you're spreading the weight evenly through all four corners of that front left foot. Hands come to cactus, and we come into these little twists. So again, the right foot can stay on the floor, and you can simply slide it in for a gentler practice. And you're thinking about tracking that foot in, twisting just through the torso, not through the hips. Or we begin to lift the right foot up and we draw the right knee towards the left elbow. Inhale back. Exhale to twist. Inhale to lower with control. 2 more times. Exhale to twist. Inhale to lower with control. Exhale to twist. Inhale to lower. Fantastic. From here, again, we work towards straightening both legs. Just through the feet if you need to, if they need to be a little wider apart. Energy coming up through the soles of the feet. Square off through the hips so that they're pointing towards the front of your mat. Hands can stay on hips, or if you'd like to take a grip behind the back so that your hands are gripping on opposite elbow, feel free to do so. Inhale, so lift and lengthen through the spine. Exhale, the water bowl pulls forward as we begin that forward fold. Perhaps the hands stay behind your spine this time, and we're engaging a little bit more through the core muscles, belly button drawing in towards the back of the spine. Keep squaring off with the hips, the right hip pointing forwards. Hands, of course, can come onto that leg for support if needed. Back of the neck is long. If you'd like to release into the deeper stretch, you can do so. Hands come towards the floor or lower on the leg perhaps. And then really relax through the back of your neck. Again, you can bend a little bit through this left knee. I'm not particularly worried about it being super straight, especially as we're not super warm right at this second. But try as much as possible to keep this back leg straight and engaged. Good. From here, bend both knees. Engage those core muscles even more, and then exhale, begin to slowly roll up through the spine, vertebrae by vertebrae to come to standing. From here, we'll turn so that our toes are pointing towards the long end of our mat, and we can take the legs even wider apart so that we can come into Prasarita Parottanasana. Yeah. Hands on hips. Again, feel that energy sucking up through the soles of the feet, thighs engaged. The pelvis is that water bowl once more. Inhale, so lift and lengthen through the spine. Exhale, tilt forward from the pelvis, let the water pour out, and then it travels down your spine. Just stop at a flat back position for you. Relax through the back of the neck. Really mold the outside edges of your feet down and towards the mat. Continue to contract and engage through the core muscles here. Yeah, so we're contracting through the front side of our body, thighs engaged, core muscles engaged, so that the back of our legs and the back of the spine can relax and release. And then only if it feels comfortable for you, can you perhaps work towards bringing the fingers so that they're a little bit more in line with your toes, crown of the head drawing down towards the floor. Yeah, so if I take it on this angle, you can see that I'm trying to keep my weight forward in my toes. I'm not letting it shift back towards my heels. And belly button as much as possible, engaging. And then I'm exhaling to just release. And I'm not being super concerned about how close my head is getting to the floor. Instead, I'm concerned about the lengthening and release through the back of my spine. Front of my chest is still broad and open, allowing the heart center to shine through. Wonderful. From here, walk those hands back out so that they're underneath the shoulders, and we'll ground down through our right palm, and then inhale, bring that left arm up towards the sky. So yes, this is a spiral for the spine, but I want you to really think about that sensation in the inner right thigh and groin as you twist. So think of the twist starting from there as you open up towards the left. Left finger's reaching up towards the sky. Keep those legs and thighs engaged. One more deep breath in, and then exhale. We take the left palm down and we swap over. So the left palm grounds down on the floor underneath our face. And again, start this twist and spiral from the left side of the pelvis. Inhale to come up and feel and become aware of that sensation of stretch in the inner left thigh and groin. Keep engaging and working through the abdominals and the obliques. One more deep breath in. And then exhale, the hands come down, back towards the mat. When you bend down, knees ever so slightly, engage the core muscles even further. Take those hands one at a time onto the hips, and then inhale to lift and lengthen to standing. Set the heel and toe of the feet together. And I want you to take just a second to give those ankles a little circle in both directions, just releasing tension that might have built up there. So we stay facing the long end of our mat. Now we're taking those legs wide once more in our natural turnout. So again, just like at the start of the class, make sure it's your natural turnout. So don't feel like you need to have your toes pointing directly to the short ends of your mat. 45 degrees is plenty if that's your turnout there. Take a deep breath in and then exhale. Let your hands float down the legs until they're hovering just above the kneecap and not pushing into the kneecap itself. And you're letting your hips and your pelvis sink down towards the floor. Keep a little micro bend for the elbows so that you're not locking into the joint there, but the shoulders can come up towards the ears, that's okay. We're just going to hold here for a few breaths, in and out. Try to let go of any tension you might be holding around the face, neck or jaw, and really just allow yourself to surrender through the pelvis towards gravity here. Inhale to lift and lengthen through the spine, and then as you exhale, twist towards your right, pressing firmly down through the palm of the left hand, and looking out over that right shoulder. And again, we're feeling that spiral through the whole of the torso, right down from the pelvis, all the way up to the crown of the head. Inhale through center, exhale. We twist towards our left. Again, try not to lock into the elbow joints here. Notice how that changes the stretch in through that inner thigh. Inhale back through center, exhale. Whew. Can you find that little bit more sense of sinking and surrendering down towards the floor? Inhale, we come back up. Good. Lovely. Now, you might want to take that again after you've given your wrists a little bit of a rest. Give you a little triggering to wrist sometimes. And if you do take it again, I'm just going to change the angle so you can see. I want you to really think about trying to drop the tailbone straight towards the floor rather than to the wall behind you. So a common mistake I'll see is people will come into this sort of sumo wrestler-like pose where they're really pitching their crown of the head forwards and sending their tailbone back in space. Now, that's sort of fine in of itself. Yeah, you are still getting a bit of a stretch, but what it's doing is putting a lot of load of pressure on your lower back. Instead, I want you to think as much as possible of taking the tailbone straight down towards the floor. And that might mean you're not able to go quite as low. Sorry, I just lost the ability to speak there for a second. But hopefully you can see the difference there. See how my crown of my head is a little bit more on top of my pelvis. It is leaning forward a little bit, but that's just so that I can relax and release into the posture. And my tailbone is pointing down a little bit more towards the floor, rather than pitching forwards. Yeah. Inhale to come back up, pressing up through the hands. Good. From here, we're staying with this wide position. I'd like you to inhale your arms up to shoulder height. And same idea, tailbone's dropping straight towards the floor. I want you to come back into moon goddess, but without that arm hold. Yeah. So this is a little plie of sorts. Good. Now from here, if you prefer, hands can stay where they are, or they can just be relaxed and loosey-goosey around you. I want you to begin to circle, so it's this wall-to-wheel concept again, starting by circling towards the right, and then coming to the left and then back. Yeah. So again, it should feel nice for the knees. They're working hard, you're warming up that synovial fluid there. But for me personally, I can feel that sort of stickiness, that resistance in through the deep parts of my hip sockets. Deep, deep, deep into those inner and external rotators. And if you find a moment that you think, ooh, yeah, that's a gooey spot, you can hold there for a little bit if you like before moving onwards. Or just keep the flow going. Make sure you move in the opposite direction as well. Engage your core muscles. And if you want to go completely freeform, you can begin to change the angle of one or both feet. So this is sort of like an Elvis Presley movement, yeah? So you're keeping that sense of the wheel motion going, but you're exploring different angles through the hips. This is a fun one to do at home because hopefully you're feeling like you're in a really safe space. So you can really go to town, yeah? Nobody's watching you, you're just watching me. And nobody makes more of a fool out of themselves than me, yeah? Good. And again, you might find there's a spot where you're like, oh yeah, just there. And if you want to hold for a little bit, you can. Again, abdominal muscles engaged. And then when you're ready to keep moving, you can. It's a little bit like riding a wave or something. She says as though she's ever tried surfing. I've not. But let's roll with that metaphor. Good. Coming back to stillness, external rotation. Inhale to lengthen up through the legs, and then heel and toe the feet together. Now you might feel a little bit of tension in the hips or the legs now, so feel free to just give those legs a really good little shake out to get rid of any of that sense of muckiness. Beautiful. Coming back to stillness, I'd like us to take a really simple stretch for the front of the thighs. So not coming into dancer's pose. Well, it's like we are coming into dancer's pose, but we're just coming into that initial step, yeah? So picking the right foot up, reaching around with the right hand to hold onto the top of the foot, drawing the knees slightly closer together, tailbone dropping down towards the floor. That's become a constant refrain for this little session. Inhale, the crown of the head towards the ceiling, and exhale, we really press out through that sole of the left foot to lengthen us away from the earth, whilst at the same time grounding down into the earth. And I don't want us to move any deeper than this because I don't want this to be quite so much about the balance. It is obviously a balance. You should feel your abdominal muscles working hard, supporting leg engaged. But I want you to just really focus on that lovely stretch through the right thigh, front of right thigh. Try not to let yourself sink into the left hip. Press away from the left hip. Inhale, we release. Exhale, have a little shake, and then we take it to the other side. So weight comes in towards the right foot, and then the left foot comes behind. Draw the knees slightly closer together. Tailbone towards the floor. Engage up through that supporting leg, lift up and away from the right hip. Relax shoulders. Give your head a little shake if you're holding any tension there. Just focus on the little gaze point ahead of you. Don't feel the need to take it any further or deeper than this. Yeah, you're already working your balance. And we really just want to focus on that lovely stretch through the front of the left thigh. Good. Deep breath in. And then exhale, we take that left foot back down to the mat. Now, if you've done this in the middle of a work day, just to kind of get the cobwebs out of your body, whether that's because you've been sitting and working at the desk, or you've just been standing in one position for a while, or maybe you've been sitting on the couch for a bit, and you want to still stay active, so that could be enough. You can just take a couple little jumps, or maybe a few rounds of our full body swings, just to really get that blood flowing, particularly if you feel like you're falling asleep at the desk. If you're doing this more towards the end of the day and you want to have a moment to really ground down and relax down into the earth, then we're going to come down towards the floor. Dealer's choice, you can come down through a squat, a swan dive, or maybe we roll down through the spine. So come to Uttanasana, bend the knees until you can completely release yourself onto the floor. So once we come down towards the floor in a seated position, obviously I did this practice without a mat, but if you want the padding and support of a mat or a blanket or cushion, maybe not so much a cushion, but a mat or a blanket for sure, take a moment to set that up for yourself. But otherwise, we're going to take our right leg in front so that this shin bone is parallel to the wall in front of you, yeah, or the short end of the mat if you're using a mat. This leg that's behind you, this left leg, is just somewhere where it's comfortable and relaxed, okay? From here, we're going to inhale to lift and lengthen up through the spine. And then exhale, take the heart center so it falls directly into the center of the shin bone, using the hands for support, yeah? Stop where you feel that first point of resistance, and then just release and relax there. Relaxing through the back of the neck. So hopefully we've really warmed up deep in towards your hip muscles. So you should feel like you can really relax and surrender down into this posture. Don't worry about keeping a super straight spine. Spine can curve here. Eyes can close. Send the breath in towards the right hip and the right leg and in towards the back side of the body. Good. One or two more deep breaths here. Not holding for too long. If you feel like you can surrender a little deeper, feel free to do so. Inhale, we slowly walk the hands back up so that we can lift the torso upright. And then this leg now, I want you to pay a little bit more attention to where it is in space. So for me personally, I just had it quite far back, but I'm going to draw it a little bit in, so that if I was to draw a line out from that hip, my knee is kind of pointing in towards that wall, directly to the left of me. From here, I'm going to engage my core muscles and then exhale, turn towards the left over this leg, yeah? And then from here, deep breath in, exhale, I'm going to begin to fold forward over this hip crease. And you're not going to be able to move very far, that's kind of the point, yeah? But I want you to get a really deep stretch in your inner rotators. And again, it's just another way to sort of explore this hip socket, this hip joint in a way that we don't commonly do in everyday life. But our hips are this amazing, not quite 360 degree joint, not at all, but we often don't really think about them in everyday life, about how circular they are in motion. We think just about the front, we don't think about the sides, the back. So let's explore that now. And it might feel a little bit icky, a little bit tight and sticky, that's okay. If you feel any sharp pains, anything that's like really shooty stabby, of course ease out. But try to listen to your body and notice if it's just merely white noise, you know? That white noise of your body being like, oh, I'm not familiar with this, so I'm just gonna start complaining. But actually, if you just take a few breaths, your body goes, oh, not so bad in the end, is it? And we'll let you just relax into it a little bit more. To release, we inhale to come up. Exhale, we come out of the twist. Now you can either come forward into a forward fold again, particularly if that was quite intense and you want to have a moment to sink and surrender, or we're coming the reverse way now. And there's three ways that we can do this, either by just bringing that left hip up and back, so it's like it's moving through a little arc pattern, up and back, up and back. Feels really good as well if it's been a bit sticky and you just want to work the kinks out. If you want to come down, we begin to lower ourselves backwards, starting off with just resting on the elbows, gaze forward, letting the top of the thigh, and there's this really nice muscle that comes right from this hip all the way down towards the inside edge of that left knee. So giving that nice good stretch. Again, you can do that little arching movement through the left hip. If you're feeling quite comfortable here, and I'll pivot to show you, you can simply surrender and relax all the way down. But obviously that's a lot more intense on the left knee joint and also the lower back, so it depends on how you're feeling today. All of the three options are valid. All of them do really great things. In fact, all of them stretch slightly different parts of the thigh and the hip. And again, we won't hold for too long, just a couple more breaths in whichever option you're in. And then to come up, engage for your core muscles, bring that gaze slightly ahead of you. And just use your arms and your elbows to help bring you back upright. And we'll change positions. So use that left hand to help bring the left foot forward and the right leg behind. I'm going to pivot this way. Yeah, so you can get a new angle on this side. And again, the shin is parallel to the wall that's directly in front of you. And this leg is just relaxed. We turn our heart center, so it's finding its way in towards the center of that left shin bone. Inhale to lift and lengthen, and then exhale, we fold forward. And you might find that you need to adjust this back leg a little bit. Use those hands for as much support as you need. And then relax through the back of the spine. Feeling a little bit slippery today myself, so I'm bringing my hands a little closer to support myself. Once I find a comfortable position, I close my eyes and I just really try to switch off and sink into the forward fold. Send the breath in towards my my left hip and my left buttock. Not worrying about what you look like. Simply just enjoying how you feel. And then inhale to lift and lengthen, exhale. Use your hands to help walk you upright. And then again, adjust this leg a little bit so that you feel like you can bring both buttocks a bit more on towards the floor. And that knee is pointing directly out towards the wall. Inhale to lift and lengthen, exhale to twist towards the right. Hands frame the leg. And then exhale, we begin to fold forward over that right leg. So for me, this is my sticky, icky side. I can feel that hip's already gone like, no, that's enough, thanks. So I have to work really hard to keep my face, my neck and my jaw soft and to relax through the legs so that there's nothing creeping up here that's unnecessary tension. And I focus on sending my breath in towards the right hip. And you might be able to release a little deeper on second or third exhale, or you might not. That's okay. Be happy to stay where you are. Be happy to just explore this moment. Whew. To release, slowly inhale up. That was quite bad for me on this side. So when I come back to center, I'm actually going to take just a little counter twist and turn to look over my left shoulder off towards those right toes behind me before I come back. That's better. From here, again, you have that option of just creating that little arching motion through the right hip, or you can begin to come backwards. Yeah, supporting yourself first of all with the elbows, and again, perhaps you can rock that hip forwards and backwards. That little sense of an arch motion. Or you can come all the way down. Yeah. And sink and relax down into the earth. And this is a very good example of how both three of those points in that journey to here do stretch slightly different points in the upper thigh and a hip. So for instance, even though this was my sticky hip, I'm actually finding this quite easeful. And I assume that's because my thigh on this side is quite open. So actually, I'm going to come back up and just to continue to explore the hip, because it's obviously the hip on this side for me that is holding the tension. Yeah, so sometimes in yoga you'll find a sweet spot that works for you, and it's tempting to stay there, but actually it's often good to come back to basics, or to come back to what is traditionally perceived to be a gentle variation, and explore how your body feels in those, because they're often the moments that offer the most learning potential for how your body works and how you're feeling physically, mentally, and emotionally. And for me, this is obviously what I need to be working a little bit more on. But if you are lying back and you are relaxed, then just take a deep breath in, and then as you exhale, engage through those core muscles, bring your gaze forward, and use your hands and your arms to just help lift you back upright. If you stayed in the first variation, we let that hip come back to stillness. Yeah, and then use this right hand to help bring that right leg in front. And we'll come to Sukhasana, whether that's a really square cross leg, or you could come to Sukhasana with the feet a little closer together. Yeah. Whichever option you prefer. Hands on hips. Just take a couple of grounding breaths here. So we won't come into full Shavasana today, because again, the focus on this is actually a bit more of an energizing practice. But obviously there's always the option, if you'd like to lie down, if you'd like to spend a few moments with your breath in a Shavasana, please feel free to do so. But if not, hold here and take a moment to do a full body scan as you inhale and exhale out through the nose. Notice how your body is feeling after this practice. Notice the breath. Any changes there? There's no positive or negative, there's simply change here. And notice how the mind is feeling and how your energy levels are feeling. Make a note of how this practice has worked for you. Be mindful of it and learn from it. Take it into your everyday life. And we'll take the hands to prayer at heart center, Anjali Mudra. Slightly bow the forehead down towards the fingertips. Let's conclude with one chant of the mantra Om, just to really feel that vibration of energy through the body before we move on with our day. So we'll take a exhale here to synchronize the breath. Then a deep breath in for Om. May you carry this peaceful vibration and energy with you into the rest of your day and the rest of your week. Thank you, yogis, for joining me online today. If you liked this little practice, please do give it a thumbs up or a comment in the sections. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, so you can always be updated when I drop new videos. But otherwise, I wish you a very happy and healthy and safe continuation of your day, and I will see you all again soon.